Moving on to the Bucks and the Bulls. We've talked a little bit about a lot of the injuries that are happening in the postseason, and Khris Midleton is one of those big names that is going to be out for a significant amount of time. He has an MCL sprain, not tear, but a sprain suffered in Game 2. And the Bulls, they snatched that game away from the Bucks in Milwaukee. So back in Chicago tonight, Bucks are still the favorite on the road. But the Bulls hosting their first playoff game since 2017, so you can imagine that the United Center is going to be pretty excited tonight. Khris, we'll start with you here. What is your thoughts for this game?
Yeah, let me tell you, as somebody who's with older age has endured some knee issues, there's a big difference between a tear and a sprain. So it's kind of good news for Khris Midleton that he can come back eventually. But make no mistake about it, he is the number 2 guy for the Bucks, and he was hugely important for them in the playoffs last year. He hit a lot of those mid-range, high-pressure shots when they needed it most. So they will miss him. But I don't have an official play on the show today, but the only direction I can look, even though you could argue there's plenty of momentum going in Chicago's direction, they do play somewhat better at home. I mean, they're still haven't been a very good team at home post All-Star break, but this is a game where the Bucks need to show that they are as every bit as much of a championship contender as they were last year. Obviously, the returning champs, but this should be a gigantic Giannis game. Who's going to feel the added weight on him? He's okay with that. We've seen him take on that pressure before and put up some dominant performances. There's a reason why his points, assists, and rebounds are at 56, 55 and a half, depending on the book. I mean, that is an outrageous line. But I think that it might still go over tonight, because he's going to have such a responsibility for this team. The Bucks need to apply some of that defense that we saw last year in the playoffs too. They were able to switch it up a lot. I don't know if they have the personnel as much this year. So, they don't have PJ Tucker, who they probably still miss. But they still have plenty of guys that can step up, and they need to probably just keep Jrue Holiday on DeMar DeRozan as much as possible and see a uptick in his defensive effort too, because we've seen some good things from the Bucks, but this is a Bucks team that's still allowing the Bulls to do too many things. The Bulls shot 58% from three-point land in Game 2. That's absurd. The Bulls don't do that. And if the Bulls choose to shoot that many threes, they don't do it that well. So maybe we start to close out on those three-pointers, Bucks. I expect a really solid all-around effort, just like I do for the Suns, which we'll talk about in the next game. These are 2 championship teams. And, I know the Bucks, listen, this is the 20th rated defense since the All-Star break, so they have not looked great, but it's coming. I still believe that this is a defense that's going to turn up the volume. So I would have to lean all directions towards the Bucks again tonight, although it's getting a little bit scary now because give credit to the Bulls. Caruso has been playing excellent defense. DeMar DeRozan stepped up just like he said he would, and Vucevic is playing really well too. So they are putting forward their best effort.
I don't have an official play on this game either, but I would agree with you. I lean towards the Bucks. What I did like from the Bulls in Game 2, though, I thought they showed a little bit more poise than they have towards the second half of the season. I mean, they've been really bad against top teams, but in that last game, they were up 18. The Bucks made a run, cut it to 3, and the Bulls responded. They had brought that lead back up to 16. That's something that against top teams towards the back end of the season, that's when they completely fold, and that's when the better team takes over and wins the game. But we didn't see that from the Bulls this time. They looked a little bit more poised, like they were playing a more cohesive game altogether. So I thought good signs there for the Bulls, but I still think that this is a Milwaukee Bucks team that obviously is a championship caliber team and just hasn't quite turned it on completely. Their defense has another level that they can get to. It's just putting all the pieces together, and I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem for them going forward, even without Middleton in, I will add. Josh, could you talk Khris or I out of leaning towards the Bucks? Are you thinking the Bulls? What's going on?
I'm just waiting for one of you to officially pull the trigger on Milwaukee so I can just do the same thing, really. I want to do it. I haven't done it yet. I think absolutely it's the right side, in my opinion. Obviously, Middleton being out certainly hurts them, especially the longer the series goes. But he hasn't been good to start this series. He wasn't good in Game 1. He wasn't good in the first half of Game 2. And ultimately, more Giannis is probably a good thing because it is still the biggest mismatch on the floor. Chicago simply doesn't have an answer for him. And if they continue to run absolutely everything through him, I think it's going to probably be to the benefit of Milwaukee's offense in the grand scheme of things, not just because of what he can do scoring it, but then what he does simply by through the attention rather that he drags from the defense and the space that it opens up for everyone else on the floor. So it does mean we also need a big Drew Holiday game, which we have not had as yet. And I think, we're all kind of waiting for it. He was excellent in the playoffs last season, not just as a facilitator, but as a scorer. So he needs to find his rhythm in terms of scoring the basketball. But I'm not necessarily sold on Chicago either. I thought it was a great win. But it involved DeMar DeRozan making a lot of tough shots. They were not easy. A lot of them were heavily contested. A lot of them were low percentage, long mid-range twos, which, it's DeRozan's bread and butter. So I don't want to take away from the fact that, he can probably do it again. But it's still a low percentage shot and one that I think that Milwaukee will be happy to live with the outcome of more often than not. So I don't think they're necessarily going to make adjustments there. I think the Bulls, like Khris said, they're not going to shoot that well from three again. That's just not what this team's about. And ultimately, I don't think the adjustments that Budenholzer needs to make are necessarily drastic by any stretch of the imagination. So if they perform at a similar level to what they did in Game 2, it probably is going to be enough to win and cover, I think, in this situation. Looking at the shot quality metrics from that Game 2, the Bucks should have won by 15 points based on those projections. And I think that kind of speaks to how much Chicago sort of overperformed their expectations, especially, like you said, from beyond the arc. And also the fact that Milwaukee underperformed in terms of their shooting. And they were able to actually run pretty good offensive sets. It's just nothing seemed to fall for them for large stretches at a time, which put them in pretty big holes. So, yeah, I agree entirely with both of you. I think Milwaukee's a side. I think I should play it. I haven't played it. I might play it. I don't know. But if you're going to play this game, it definitely has to be Milwaukee.
All right. Well, I'll play it if you guys play it. How about that?
Yep. I love these games.
I've already played it. I just didn't want to say it on the show. We can't.
Okay.
What are we wasting our time here, Khris?
Yeah, come on, Khris.
We can't have to convince ourselves. I'm talking just to convince myself here, not because of any other reason.
I try not to give all of my picks on every show, but I definitely took the Bucks. No doubt about it.
All right, an extra premium pick for free from Farley Bets over there. So clearly taking the Bucks tonight.
Take the Bucks. I'm in.
All right.